Welcome back to Cover Your Assets, coveryourassets21.com. Go there, get to know the team, download your free copy of the Financial Crisis Bible. Awesome information if you'd like to speak with us now or anytime during the week. It's 855-835-8500. That's 855-835-8500. Now we're here with Craig Nestor, Jason Walgrave, and Todd Rooker. And guys, we started out with some pretty interesting, alarming statistics about how many people just went late for the first time in, August. 7 million people. So before you get to the point where you're actually in the now sped up foreclosure process, Jason, what can people do?
Well, I think the first step is to sit down with Todd. If you're in a situation where you're negative every month and you're tapping into your savings and 401k, or your financial situation has changed, whether you consider it a crisis or not, sitting down with Todd and he will explain and show you what all of your options are. And if short sales are out, that's great. If it's something else, he'll go through that. So that's really first step.
Todd, it seems so odd, and counterintuitive for somebody who's feeling like they're in a financial crisis to go pick up the services of a high-powered consultant like yourself. What can you do to affect an outcome?
Well, that is a question that comes up frequently, which is, how can I afford to pay somebody to help me when I can't afford to pay the bills? The challenge is, of course, is that they'll run themselves right into the rocks until they completely run out of money. When Jason said, just want to expand, when he said they're exhausting their resources or using their retirement or using their savings, what that means is that they're in a monthly burn rate, which is to say that their monthly income is not going to support all of their expenses. And although they've not missed a payment, they're using those resources to subsidize the payments to try to stay current and on time. Well, that's going to have a finite timeline before they completely run out of money and exhaust those savings, and then they're going to completely crash into the rocks, and the options that they have on the table at this moment will no longer be available to them, and it'll be too late. So at some point, you have to make a decision to stop this situation, and let's look at it objectively with a grand strategy. Not just let's just save the home, but how do we fix this situation so that we actually can afford to make our payments on time with the current income and get ourselves to a position of solvency where we actually can begin to rebuild our financial lives. The house itself may or may not be the problem, but you have to look at that to determine that. The other thing to look at is when you consider things like short sales, something that everybody says, well, it's a waste of time because it never works anyway. Well, that's a load of garbage, because we did over 300 of them last year successfully, so they absolutely can be done, but they've got to be done with the finesse of an expert who really knows what they're doing. That's the primary thing we have to be concerned with.
And a broader perspective, too, because it's not just because somebody might be upside down in their house and they want to move or they've had a disaster. It might not always be the right situation. I know somebody, you guys, who listed their home on a short sale, 20 grand upside down, and that's pretty much all I know. And they say, well, we want to get a smaller house. And I'm sitting there without diving too much into this acquaintance's personal situation. I'm thinking, how are they, if they short sell, going to get into another house right now? Did they look at this from the whole big picture like this team here at Cover Your Assets does? Jason, what should people do before they go into that situation?
Well, the first thing to understand is that short sales or national averages is less than 35% successful. So, let's face it, short sales is a big part of the real estate business right now. And when you have a big part of the business, everybody wants to get into it. So you hear all these agents are experts. I'm a short sale expert. This is all I do, yada, yada, yada. But the reality is there's only a handful.
They've done two.
Well, they've taken the continuing ed class.
They've got the CD, PE, EEE, or whatever it is. The reality is there's only a handful of guys or teams in town that really do short sales well. Our success rate is 90%. When I sit down with families, and actually usually starts over the phone, I'll go through a pre-qualification process and ask them some questions. What's changed in your financial situation? Do you have less income or more expenses? Has there been a divorce? Any health concerns? Another question I ask, has your job moved more than 30 miles from when you got the loan? An example of one family that I helped out just a few months ago, his job relocated him about 60 miles. So he went from the Princeton area down to Lakeville. He was actually making more money at the new job, but he was spending 2.5, 3 hours a day in traffic, driving. Ugh. That is absolutely a hardship. He has wife, 2 kids at home. To spend 3 hours driving, that is a hardship. We went to the bank, explained the situation. We successfully closed that short sale with a full satisfaction. So, there's an example of something that you don't really hear about a lot. It's, only if you've lost your job or only if you've got, extreme medical, situation, do you qualify for a short sale? And that's not the case.
We talk about unbiased advice here with Todd's expertise, Craig's, and yours, Jason, too. But Craig, the people that contact Cover Your Assets team might sit down with you first. And the idea is about all this. You're not going to just say, oh, yeah, do a short sale because there's a potential transaction here that can be made, right?
Some families need comprehensive understanding of loan modifications, short sales, or what happens at a sheriff's sale, what is the foreclosure timeline, how do I get my credit back? Some families would do anything possible to stay in their home.
That's it. And the problem is when they do that, they may actually be putting themselves in a position that's no better than the one that they had previously. I frequently will say if I'm 50 feet underwater, 100 feet underwater, I'm drowning in either case. So this whole notion that something is better than nothing, as in I get a modification that lowers my payment by $300 or $400 per month, but the reality is I'm no more capable of making that payment than the other payment that I had previously. And the also reality is I've got $80,000 or $90,000 in credit card debt. So I've really not fixed anything with this. That's what I meant by a grand strategy and a holistic approach. A short sale is an opportunity to minimize the impact to your credit and allow you to get back on your feet in a fraction of the time that a foreclosure would take you to recover from. So everybody who goes through a short sale, frankly, will say, I wish the heck I could buy my house or have a mortgage on my home that was what the home is currently worth as opposed to my mortgage now, which is way underwater. Well, if that's true, then shouldn't you be concerned, despite the fact that more often than not, people will tell me, I don't care if I ever own a home again. They'll tell me that. When the process is over, the first thing that comes out of their mouth is, how quickly can I recover from this issue? What they're really saying is, how long until I can be a homeowner again? Well, they should be concerned with that from the onset. And if they want to be able to take advantage of the market, because in point of fact, they bought high and now they're being forced to sell low in a short sale proposition. If they want to be able to buy a home for what it's worth in today's market, seemingly buy low and then hold it and sell high, then they have to get themselves in a position to take advantage of the marketplace. And that's why it's so concerning as to whether or not you do a short sale or just sit on your rear end and let the house go into foreclosure.
Yeah.
Well, in most cases, they simply need to downsize with a plan. And they don't know how to navigate a very complicated and intricate foreclosure process followed by a short sale process. I mean, there is time. They do need time in that house, but we do need to exit them. Jason?
The biggest difference I see is if you do a short sale successfully and you position yourself with Todd after the fact to rebuild and repair credit, you can potentially purchase a home, get a new mortgage in as little as 2 years. If you're talking about a foreclosure, and this advice is not given accurately a lot, but if you're talking about a foreclosure, it's up to 7 years on conventional finance. That's what it currently is. So you're looking at a difference between 2 years or 7 years. I sat down with a couple this past week, and one of the questions I always ask families is, what are you going to do once the short sale is complete? And they, well, what do you mean, Jason? Well, where are you going to go? Well, we're probably going to rent. Well, let's start working on that right now. We've got property management companies that we work with, so we help facilitate. I don't want to just get the house sold and sayonara, we'll see you later. I want to know where you're going to go, how can we help you get into the house, and then let's position you to be ready to buy in 2 years.
This group in the last year has successfully navigated over 500 families right here in the Twin Cities to what we call a soft landing. We either want to make it so you can truly afford the home that you're in, or let's get you to a home that you can afford where you can lick your wounds, make your bills on time, and rebound and come back another day. That's the whole purpose of it. It's to fall and rise again. And I think that, one of the things that Jason and I and Todd do is provide families with that blueprint, that step-by-step structure of fulfillment to have the life that they sought out for, and we get them through these obstacles with as little damage as possible.
Well, what's interesting about that meeting I had is it was a husband and wife. And I was talking about the difference between the foreclosure and the short sale and the timeline. And Mrs. Seller said, "Well, I don't ever want to buy again. I don't want to have anything to do with real estate or a mortgage or any of that." and I kind of chuckled and I said, "Well, you feel that way now, but I don't think you're going to feel that way in a year." And her husband said, "No, honey, I want to buy again. I want to buy in 2 years. I want to take advantage of the opportunities that are out there." And she said, "You are? You want to buy again? You want to be an owner again?" "Absolutely, I do." Well, I think
these are my clients, aren't they?
Exactly.
Yeah.
He saw, this isn't the end of the world. Okay, we're losing our house. We got to sell it on a short sale. It's not the all in. he saw the what's going to happen in 2 years, and that you can recover, and that you can fall and rise again, as Craig always says.
They become so focused on the moment that they're in that they don't see beyond that.
Exactly.
And that's really the issue. You've got to look at their current situation. And the reality is you look at the alternative. Maybe when you look at this situation and you look at the alternative as being rent, and you look at the difference or contrast in price, well, we may come to the conclusion that a short sale isn't the best option for you, because the reality is when you go and rent, it's going to cost you as much or more, all things considered. You'll no longer have the tax incentive to write off the interest on the rental that you do have on the home. And in fact, if that's the case, if the alternative of renting is no better financially than being in the home, then the problem is no longer the home. You've got other issues. Mm-hmm. So the fact that you're upside down $50,000 or $100,000 on your home, look, man, join the club. Nothing unique about that. Lots of people in that situation. But the reality is moving, walking away, going to be a better financial situation for you. And if it is, then a short sale is undoubtedly going to be a better situation than foreclosure. Having said that, you better have the money and the preparation so when the house is sold, you've got the juice to be able to go elsewhere, and you're prepared for that move. That's why, as Jason said, you got to be prepared for that from the onset.
And it's amazing. I think so many people, guys, and Craig, I'm sure you get this conversation a lot when you're meeting with families. I think a lot of people can't imagine that there's some place that they could possibly go on a direction right now, perhaps into a contract for deed situation to rebuild and be ready to own again in 2 years with investors and some of these things. Do you hear that a lot, that they're surprised?
As insiders in the foreclosure business, we are the best at knowing and working towards a strategy that will help your family regardless of where you're at.
And this is good information, whether or not you've missed a payment. Maybe you know somebody. Maybe you're worried that it could happen to you. 855-835-8500. This is Cover Your Assets.